It's me, Vera, here to remind you that this is an adult podcast. That means we're going to deal with tough topics. Take a break if you need it, and be kind to yourself, because we sure won't be.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Cracked Crown, a Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition podcast. As always, I am your storyteller, Mike Martin, joined by Sean, Mark, Jason, Bub, and Dot. And I don't know why I said Sean, I meant Josh, but it's the same. Really, you're kind of similar in some ways.
It's method.
Yeah, it's method acting.
I pretty much know him as Sean. So.
I mean, you know Josh more as Sean than as Josh, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Welcome back, everybody, to episode...
This will be 7.
7 or 6? 7. Welcome to episode 7 here of Crack Crown. I'm excited to continue where we left off. Before we do so, as always, we have to shill and thank. So thank you, people, for supporting us as we shill. You can support the show at patreon.com/podbynight directly. Each tier gets you some neat stuff, including access to, in the higher tiers, to the community game, which if you're part of the community game, you might see some subtle Easter eggs for you in the background of the game as the game is played. But if you're not part of the community game, don't worry. You're not like missing context or anything. The story is as it is. No extra there. But you can participate in the world if you so decide to by going there. You can also support us right here on twitch.tv/podbynight by subscribing to us. The money we make basically on Twitch is going directly to support and pay the cast of SOS, as SOS Season 3 will be already have started by the time you're listening to this episode as a podcast. And since that's not really like a Pod by Night property, Twitch is where we're going to use our funding to make sure everybody gets paid there. So if you want to support us that way, you can do it that way. But the best way to support us in any ways is share the podcast, share the show with people. Let them know if they're looking for a new tabletop show. Check out Stitch of Fate. Maybe they'll like it. Jump into Cracked Crown, or maybe check out Desperate Measures, one of the smaller ones we did to get a taste of how we do things. There's a lot of different flavors out there now, and they can try out. They kind of dip their toes in to see if they like it or not. That's probably the best way to kind of push the show forward. We keep growing, and we want to keep growing until one day we are on stage again in another live show, able to do another special.
And you know what? If you don't like us, you can tell your enemies about us.
Right? Yeah, you just spread the word regardless. Poison another person's mind, whatever you have to do. That's pretty much it on my bucket list of things to pimp out. I really want to jump back into the show because we left off in a very particularly interesting moment. So I got hiccups out of nowhere. Sorry. There we go. Without further ado, let's set the scene, rein things in, and see what our coterie is up to. It's Sean's voice saying, "So who the hell are you, Bob?" That brings us back in. The basement of this panic room surrounds us with that dim orange glow and chipped away, deteriorating brick walls and a concrete floor that has seen better days. Bits of pieces of furniture, like the bucket that hangs a bucket that sits under a body hanging from a splintered beam on the ceiling, and a few shelves scattered with old newspaper clippings that are more or less meaningless at the very moment, is what surrounds you. Bob stands near the front door of this building after having let the rest of those kindred who squatted here out. And Sean standing near the hallway, I imagine maybe with his arms crossed or maybe even just leaning up against the wall, lets that question ring out. My curiosity before going to Bob is, does Vera, Duke, or Max kind of also ask questions? Do they say anything, or they just let the question kind of sit and...
Maybe not how I would have asked the question, but Vera does not say anything.
Sure, okay.
Max actually lights a cigarette, looks over at Sean and says, "I don't know, kid. That to me sounds like it falls firmly in the category of Bob's business."
Oh, yeah.
If you not any of ours, unless he feels like John.
I mean, I'm happy to keep calling you Bob Kowalski forever, but like, if there's something you want to tell us, now seems like a really good time for it.
Where is the FBI agent?
She is gagged and bound on the floor, sat there, kind of left there.
Look, Sean, all you need to know is that I'm on your side. All right? Maybe with no other ears in the room, we could go into a little more detail about that. But, you know, as long as we've got this sort of, we don't know what we're going to do with this lady here. So
gesturing over at the FBI agent sat on the floor.
I'm willing to go deep with you guys. I am. I mean, you made me an honorary member of the pack, and I'm forever indebted. And I feel like you are owed a more detailed answer, but just maybe not with, you know, present company here.
Yeah, Bob's right, kid. First things first. And don't you worry, Bob. We're going to get you that Drac Pack t-shirt.
Oh, awesome. Size large.
Yeah. Nice and roomy.
Which is weird because when he said that, he looks like he's way bigger than a size large. Just throwing that out there.
Does anybody do anything with the agent out of curiosity?
Actually, I believe Max had said he was going to get her squared away. So I think he basically has prepared another room off to the side.
Sure. Do you take her upstairs into the actual tire shop, like where the actual shop is?
Yeah, someplace that can be easily secured, like basically a storage closet that can easily Max.
Oh yeah. There's an old bathroom up there that is not used. That still has a deadbolt lock on it and whatnot. You can kind of toss her in there.
Is it locked from the outside?
Oh no, it locks from the inside, but there is a lock that, we're all locked on from the inside.
Okay, so Max is basically gonna, actually he'll rip the lock on the inside off.
There you go.
Close the door and then just move the heaviest thing he can find against
you just
something way too heavy for a human to move.
There's an old lift, like it looks like somebody would lift weights in here. There's an old bench with like a bell bar and stuff on it. And you can just kind of slide it up against it and maybe stack some boxes with car parts on top of that.
Yeah,
But eventually, after a few minutes, you hear, after you downstairs all hear the slamming of a door followed by like a crack and rattle. And then the sounds of dragging and lifting and thumping for a good 5 minutes before you hear the definitive, very recognizable footsteps of Max.
And I should mention that she, of course, she's zip tied and gagged up again.
Yeah, re-gagged and all that stuff.
And searched, make sure she doesn't got no pocket knife or nothing on her.
Yep, Adelaide did a great job patting her down. You don't find anything extra on her.
Okay.
Do you knock her out or do you leave her awake?
Actually, as he sits her up against the wall, it's like, I know you ain't gonna believe me, but I am sorry about this.
You see her chuckle and like roll her eyes at you.
No, I mean, it's your bad luck, right? But that's the way it goes. And by the way, for the record, you're right about us.
As he closes the door and then...
Yep, and kind of shuts her in, still awake. And on that, Max makes his way back down the stairs. Max rejoins, and you have true privacy amongst you. Well, that minus the ears of a corpse hung nearby.
Oh, there's no ears. There's
yeah. Sorry, there's just the body with a semi-intact skull, kind of lagging to the side. But Bob, as he makes his way down the stairs, the only other listener is now removed.
All right. There's no other way to doing this. So they're all here, right?
They're all here. They're probably all eyes are on you. Sean certainly, and Vera definitely. Maybe Max it's hard to read him sometimes, and Duke is always very stoic, but he watches with interest.
There's no other way.
If it helps, Bob, I don't think any one of us has ever lived the same life only once. We all have our secrets, and trust us, we didn't get where we are because we aren't good at keeping them.
Well, here's the thing. Bob Kowalski is simply a persona that I adapted. My real name is Robert Christopher Creslington IV, OBE, and former MP of Croydon South.
As his voice goes from a Midwestern accent to a Cockney London English accent, his posture changes entirely. Even while he was on edge or aware, there was still a Bobness about it, you might call. A lackadaisical nature, a relaxed kind of attitude towards things. But as his true name truly falls from his mouth and the accent takes over, he stands upright, his posture changes, and he stands his posture goes toe to toe with that of Vera's posture in this
when
moment.
he says all of these things, do they ring true in any sense of kindred world? Like, are these like organizations I should know?
Oh no, he's giving titles that he once held in Old England, once of perhaps Parliament.
You what, mate?
And that's the thing. Sean maybe is the one that it strikes the deepest with. As Sean, you are from London. However, maybe not quite as old or as long as clearly Bob has, but you have somebody that's from where you're from now in front of you.
I arrived in Chicago in 1868. When the Great Fire of 1874 happened, that is when I became Bob Kowalski. You have no idea the freedom that it feels to once again be myself. And I feel that I can do that with you, Trackpad.
Well,
As he speaks, this does all. It is not unusual for a kindred, especially one of elder age, to inhabit or maintain who they were upon turning. In fact, at Elysium, most of the time is where you see many kindred don their old attire, wear the things that once held meaning to them in their old lives, and hold on to that ancient power or title they had. It's just that the four of you are, especially compared to this fine gentleman, much younger than he is. And perhaps it feels a little strange, but this is not unheard of for kindred to be them, quote unquote, themselves when in their privacy of their own home or amongst Elysium or amongst those they trust. To give away that he's this age, comes with its own risks. Somebody who's this old could mean plenty of things.
I'm
We'll leave
really
it that way.
glad that we could, in our degeneracy, free you from your binds, but what exactly would you like us to call you?
You can call me Robert, that's fine.
Robert.
Well, shit, Robert. Next thing you're gonna tell me you ain't a sports ball fan.
You know what? The King's football is the sport that I follow the most, truth be told, but yes, I am a fan of American football. It grew on me, I have to say. Too many stops and starts, personally, but I am indeed a Chicago sports fan. That is one thing that Bob did not have to bring a charade about.
Is it now available for all to know who you are, or shall we continue to call you Bob in public?
I suppose that remains to be seen. The prince is aware of my identity. So now that we're in Gary, who knows? Perhaps we can show the world the new Robert, which is actually the old Robert. But
Actually, I have a question for Bob or Robert, perhaps. Is that something he is looking to do? Is he looking to reestablish his true identity as his main persona again? Again, the reason, which details can come at a later date for our coterie, but the reason you readapted as to Bob is during the Great Fire and whatnot, as things kind of fell apart. To take on the persona of Bob meant staying safe from those who might have known you elsewhere and used you for information. That's over 100 years ago now. I'm curious, is Bob looking to become Robert even publicly, or is he happy to keep these two lives separate?
I feel that Bob could be useful from time to time, but now that, as you said, over 100 years have passed since the events that I so went into hiding for, almost 150, that I feel it is now safe to return to my true identity, one that I've been longing for some time. When you're a member, when you become an officer of the British Empire, it is an honor that one does not simply want to cast aside. It's something I've held inside, dear to my heart, long after I became a kindred. To be an OBE is quite an achievement, and therefore I would love to once again present that to the world.
Out of curiosity, does the coterie go like question what the fucking OBE is? Like how familiar with his language are members of the coterie here?
Sean's gonna just be like, so in 150 years, I bet you're pretty good at playing it.
There's a moment.
That could be a very interesting. If you're talking, you might have seen me on the pitch from time to time in different personas, but
no, the oboe.
Really?
No, that's OBE. That's OBE there, Sean.
I thought of all the people here, you know what I
oboe.
was talking about.
I know. I read a few comic books in my time.
Does Robert clarify for Sean what an OBE is?
No, Sean's fucking with him. He's like, that's actually really cool. To finally have someone that has the same accent as me. I can understand you.
You don't got the same accent as him. He's all, high class and whatnot. You're like, what do you call it?
Street
scum.
Scum. Yeah, there we are. Yeah, we're on the same page.
Hey, no judging. Look,
we are brothers under the same sun, my friend. Or rather, under the same moon. Excuse me. Old habits die hard.
So what is your game here? What is it you're trying to accomplish with hiding yourself, Robert? Was it to gain some sort of allegiance with the Camarilla, to hide your true age?
No, it was really, there were many things that happened after the Chicago fire, including the fire itself. There was a crazed Malkavian that caused the entire thing. And with Lodin and the Primogen Council and, there's just many layers to unravel, shall we say.
So how does a man of your poshness and age and presence in the city of New York end up being a sports lackey for Jackson?
I felt it was the place where people would search for me the least. There's no way that they would ever think that Bob Kowalski was Robert Christopher Creslington IV.
Well, Mr. Creslington, what is it you're trying to hide? You said you were to remain hidden. Are you in trouble?
There's a silence between the two of them. And Vera, you of all people know, as he sits and perhaps ponders whether to reveal or not, the weight of certain secrets.
I see.
And when he doesn't answer, perhaps even pushes back or attempts to turn conversations a different way, I'd be curious, Vera, do you push? Would she push, or would she understand? Or would she take that as
she'll push. She just may not push now. We all have our secrets, Robert.
Does Duke do anything too?
Duke is a firm believer in letting everybody else talk so that he can decipher through the bullshit.
Certainly. As the conversation kind of wanes, shall we say, Duke has been standing there very quietly, taking in discussion, conversation. Is there any questions anybody has for Robert that he'd like him to clarify before maybe we move on to what Duke is going to say, if he's going to say anything.
So, how long exactly you been Bob?
I've been Bob since 1874.
No. I mean, sports fan Chicago Bob.
1986. I assumed that persona at that point. I was Bob Kowalski before then, but not the Bob Kowalski skin, you might say, that you met in Chicago.
Well, I just want to say for the record, I like that guy. We'll see how much I like you.
Well, maybe I can just go back to him when we hang out. How about that?
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, if you don't mind.
Does Veer did bring this question up, though it kind of like moved on as more questions were raised. But does Bob have, when asked like, what are your goals? Is there a plan? Does Bob have any personal desires beyond being able to re-inhabit his true self? Does he have desires of power or anything that he shares with the coterie? Or is he very much in a similar way to your persona, more quote unquote relaxed with your desires beyond your own true self? I mean, Robert could want a number of things, if he's even willing to share them at the moment. So I kind of posit that question to you, Jason. Is there anything Robert is truly desiring other than, like you said, shrugging free the shackles to be free to be who you are? Robert is so happy to be himself again and to be a member of a group that any ambitions that he had 150 years ago have long since gone away. And so therefore you were go ahead, sorry.
Oh yeah. And so therefore I think right now his ambitions are mainly to help this group that is now accepted.
Absolutely. It makes sense too. The last time Robert was part of a coterie was before the Great Fire. That coterie died in that fire. And in that death, so too did you let Robert die, and reborn from the ashes were Bob Kowalski. And it's been since the Great Fire that you've truly been part of any particular coterie that calls them. And of course, you've seen coteries come and go, rise to power and vanish to dust. And some fascinating ones that even exist today. Like there's a Kindred coterie in Chicago that is a band that plays together. And the sheriff of Chicago is the lead of that band. But to find a group that not only you can call your own, even if temporarily, but one that you feel safe or at least trust enough to begin to be yourself, that has been almost 150 years as well. And so the coterie sees as he moves, there's aliveness to him, a light movement to his steps, a freedom that even as Bob and his most relaxed seem to not be there. There is a true elegance to the way he's able to carry himself now. And maybe that poshness, that uppity feeling of being an old royal or an old noble is much easier to see now. And perhaps even thinking back to Bob, you see little bits of that eeped through in his behavior that all make sense now. There is a silence, I imagine. Does Duke say anything or no?
If we are through this exposition of sorts, if you're feeling much more comfortable in your own skin now, Robert, I think I'd like to speak with the woman upstairs.
By all means, proceed, please.
Do you need company, Duke?
I'm not entirely certain of that.
Vera looks at you more from the standpoint of, past things. Are you capable of handling this interrogation on your own?
I should be quite capable, though
What?
it may be
Come
worth
on.
to.
Don't you want bad cop there?
I think there are like 4 bad cops here, and then Duke.
Oh, come on. Let's face it. We'd all be terrible cops. Terrible. Like Dad. Ooh.
I'm
Be a rich
the
cop.
pretty cop.
Well, it's open forum. If anyone would like to sit in, you're more than welcome to. I don't perceive it will be very interesting for most of you.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to get Adelaide settled in. Give her a little corner to call her own.
Adelaide is watching Eric above. At my request, of course, I fed upon him, and he waned. Needed someone to watch after him, so she followed through.
Good. She's kind of hoping she can, pull her own weight. So thanks for giving us something to do.
Duke nods.
And as he nods, I imagine that he turns and curtly just walks up the ladder, making his way to the tire shop. Does anybody follow? Or is he going to go interrogate on his own?
Since the invite's open and Adelaide is otherwise
Max will go.
occupied, then Max will trail along behind.
Sean and Vera? No, Vera will stay down.
Oh, Vera
Robert,
could
I imagine, is going
interrogate
to stay
someone.
down.
She just has no reason to.
Doesn't want. Yeah. What about you, Sean?
Sean is curious, so he's going to follow along, but he intends to either stay outside and listen. He's not intending to participate unless required.
Sure. So we watch as the camera stays in the basement. Duke, followed by Max, followed by Sean, leaving just Robert and Vera downstairs. You can hear the footsteps grow distant as they head toward the bathroom on the other side of the small building. But there is a lingering silence here. The camera stays with the two of you. Do the both of you remain silent among each other? I'm very curious how the interaction between the two of you, if there is any, occurs. Perhaps it's just a lingering tense silence with Robert on one side and Vera on the other.
Is Robert sitting or is he standing?
Standing.
Oh, he is standing. Vera gets up. This is an old basement. Is there a radio or anything of music sort in this area?
You look around and you can find an old, dusty, tiny little black radio with those metal antennas that slide out all the way out. Requires a D battery.
Yeah.
Eventually you can find one maybe that barely works and you can turn this thing on if that's what you're looking to do.
I turn it on and I scroll through the static until Vera comes across something that's no rock or country alternative, an old classic station. Something that's a little bit more classical music or easy listening, one might say.
Absolutely. Classical music is easy enough to find. You come across classical music.
An NPR
very,
station
very
or something.
quickly.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. You hear the crackling as she turns the tuner until eventually, and then music starts to play.
Well, Robert, you come from an astute background, it seems. Do you dance?
Feels like a millennia, but I do.
Well, it's just like riding a bike. And Vera stands and puts a hand out. Waltz?
Let us.
And we watch, as Robert steps up and effortlessly, though he did perhaps worry that there is a little rust to it, there is a muscle memory kicks back in, something you used to do so often, well before the Chicago fire, for the time in London that you spent, and even the early time that you spent here in the U.S., and you pick up the waltz like nothing and begin to dance with Vera. Vera, Robert, is an excellent dancer. The way she moves, how she stays on beat, matching your energies. She is perhaps one of the best dancers you've had the luxury of being able to enjoy a dance with, maybe barring an elder here or there that you've had the lucky enough encounter to bump into. Vera is immaculate at what she does, and Robert surprises you. While he's no professional dancer, quote unquote, like Vera, he's able to match and keep up with you equally. His moves, the way he's able to keep pace with you, very few are able to do such a thing. But it makes sense. If he's truly from old England, then this would be something he would have done many, many times for entertainment, well before there was the joys of television and sports on TV. And then we watch as they dance. Wordlessly for the song? Is it a quiet dance?
There's a whole reason. And as Vera, we dance and we spin and we waltz in the perfect circle. Vera says, "Now, Robert, we are alone Tell me the truth. What is it you're hiding? What is it you're running from?
There's a heaviness in your stomach, I imagine, Robert. What you're hiding from is difficult to put forward because you don't know where they are or the last time you've seen them. You just know that you had to escape your sire. There were moves and rumors that in England he was going to devour you in diablerie. And the whispers of promises and power in the US were fresh, especially in the city that would become Chicago. You haven't seen hide nor hair of your sire since then, but you know kindred operate on very long timetables. He might not strike for hundreds of years. Now, whether you want to share that with Vera, it's entirely up to you.
Actually, the way that you described it is perfectly the way I describe it to her. I don't mention names. I just sort of mention my sire and things of that nature, and then quickly change the subject and go, you know, it's funny that we're in a tire shop. I remember when tires were invented. 1888, I recall. Very first commercial tire came on. Before that, we would be dragged around with those horrible wooden and metal wheels. Do you remember that?
As he asked that, does Vera was turned what year exactly? I apologize. Was it the 40s, 1940s?
She was right before, yes, she was sent away during the Second World War to America. And then was turned in New York. So 1946, I think, middle 40s.
So you would have, you weren't, again, he kind of shows his age in that you have always known tires to exist. You didn't know a lot of time before them. You're too young.
I can't say that I completely understand, but I'm not entirely unintelligible of history.
It was a simpler time, to be sure.
I too have overcome the baggage of my sire. And I did it for a reason. So that I could build the family I wanted in my second life. I have gathered those who I want to be with, the ones who the world dejected and did not want, even when they were given a second chance. I imagine that's why you're drawn to us. I told
Well, I suppose it is.
by you that you felt comfortable enough to join us. Thank you for your honesty. And I will tell you everything that I have told every one of the other coterie members of the Drag Pack. We will have your back as long as you have ours. And as long as we stay strong together. No matter if we are Camarilla, Anarch, we will always be the Drag Pack. And if you're truthful, you will always have a home here.
As she says this to you, Robert, while the words aren't direct, the clear implication is no longer will you be a member by name or guest only. The words she speak of carry a seriousness to it, perhaps a deadly one as most kindred deals do. But it seems in this moment, Vera is inviting you properly to become one with the Drac Pack and run with this coterie. But you know the implications of that. A coterie operating within one means their issues and desires are very much yours as well. There is a danger to working with others, but there's also a power that cannot be matched. And it has been almost 150 years since, Robert, you have had a true coterie. The only real kindred I would think you've gotten close to was recently, after Kevin Jackson rose to princedom, and you were able to make contact and, over the years, work for him and trust him enough to disclose who you truly are. But now a group of four know it. And Vera offers you what I would consider golden handcuffs. Does Robert accept?
I accept gladly.
Good. Then dip me.
And we watch as Robert elegantly dips Vera, and it is a low dip, and Vera is able to maintain balance and posture perfectly. And as she dips right with the song's beat, as it ends and the last piano note echoes and rings out, and we see her dip, we do a hard cut to black, and we hear the door slam open. The door open as heavy objects are moved out of the way.
Here we go. Okay,
And
Jesus.
as the door is open to this disgusting, disused bathroom where she sits on a broken toilet, Duke walks in first. She sits gagged and bound.
Is she sitting with her back to the wall? Is she sitting on the?
She's sitting
actual-
on the toilet with
on the
her
toilet.
legs zip
Okay.
tied and her arms zip tied behind her back.
Okay. Given knowing my company, I will draw the gag from her mouth. I will break the zip tie again from her wrists and from her ankles, and I'll position myself across from her, just sort of against the wall, arms crossed,
Sure. And you do so?
and I'll wait a moment. Let her to remove the bile or the spit that she has, any kind of remark.
And you do so, and though she doesn't fight back or whip her head around or anything, but she dejectedly allows it to happen.
So we meet again.
She avoids eye contact.
What's wrong? Are you afraid that I'm going to? If you look to me, I'm going to turn you into a monster. Or I'm going to make you into a dinner.
Ask your questions and get it over with.
Does she glance up to see me at that moment?
Yeah, in that moment she does.
I will mesmerize.
Rouse.
I will, in fact. I will mesmerize, and I'm going to utilize rationalize to its fullest effect.
Okay. For those who may be new listeners, could you explain what that means for them?
Yeah, rationalize just makes it feel as if what they're saying to me, what they want to do, or what I issue them to do, under the influence of dominate, it feels almost more as if it's their own free will, and they're even willing to defend those actions, even if they seem absurd.
And as Max sees this happening, Duke from behind him just hears, "There we go, the whammy, the whammy."
You recognize, obviously, as Duke, when he performs this, grows even more silent. He takes a knee, matches her eyes, and Duke, as you feel your vitae course through your veins and the beast rouse in your stomach and chest just enough to remind you where this power comes from. You catch her eyes. She cannot look away. And as you speak, it's as though you're pressing against thin ice. And with the last word of your command, you shatter it, giving way to an ocean of obedience. What is it that you say?
My name is Duke, and I would like that very much if you would tell me your full name.
Dasher Pasternak.
Very good. Dasher.
Wait a minute, like the reindeer? I'm sorry. I'll let you work.
I look over my shoulder, like, hey.
You know, Dasher, Prancer.
No, I understand, Max. Thank you.
Okay, all
Her
right.
gaze
sorry.
is firmly locked onto Duke.
I'm not even here.
Dasher, if you would, please. I would really like to know a few things, if you would offer me this information. Let's make this fast. Easy. I'd like to know who sent you, and who do you report to?
She swallows briefly. Followed a blank body out here. Information was moving from New York to Chicago. Ended up causing a scene. Followed a few loose ends and eventually found myself in Gary.
That makes sense. You're just doing your civic duty. I appreciate that. Thank you for your service. Agent, what agencies do you actually represent?
Federal Bureau of Investigation. There's a small group of us, though, have discovered the truth and we're making moves.
Right, so you have your own cell then that you operate in.
She nods.
The agent that was downstairs that was murdered, unfortunately, did he have a name?
Derek Fisher.
Derek Fisher. God rest his soul.
Yeah, it wasn't nothing personal.
Do you know who you're hunting? Whom it is that you seem to be after? This blank body.
Not after a particular one.
Well, so it's a group, then.
Purge whoever I can find, follow the loose ends, and clean up a city.
Do you have any information on the one that you were following out here?
His name was Scott.
Scott. Scott, anything else about him?
Caused a bus accident not too far outside the city. Had information, tried to get him out of here, but got interrupted.
Understand.
Infor-
So you said that you've come from New York, then,
Initially.
and you're following a lead across into Chicago, you believe?
She nods. When you discover... Oh, do you ask any question, rather? She just nods, because she's not going to freely give information
Sure.
unless you say so. I'm asking.
Dasha, when are you expected to report back, and what happens if you don't report back?
Somebody will come looking for me.
Is that someone your superior?
She nods. The Bureau. They'll come looking for a missing agent.
Bureau. And they know that you're here in Gary.
She nods.
When was the last time you reported in, Dasha?
3 days.
Where are you staying right now?
Chicago. Small motel on the outskirts.
Do you have any locations of hunter caches in Gary, by chance? Any munitions, armaments of the sort?
She quickly responds. Only one I'm aware of is in an airport. Fight took place there, though. I think it's all destroyed.
I looked at Max. Do you think that you could find me a pen and paper? I'd like to record this information down.
Yeah, sure. Here you go.
Max keeps it on him. Yeah, he pulls out his own notepad with a pen.
Can you please give me the information here? Any locker coordinates, the specific wings of the airport?
She scribbles down a very short, brief description of basically a very tiny personal airport. As you say, like important people. She'll write down a few things. Do you ask anything specific more than that? Like, yeah, I'm curious, like...
How many
if you
others were
say-
involved in this event at the airport?
I don't know the numbers exactly. Luciano crime family. A few police. And a few blank body assholes.
Were there many deceased in the event?
She shakes her head. I don't know.
Understood. Understood. Do you have an informant inside the blank body network?
She shakes her head. No.
What would it mean to have an informant for you in the blank body network?
There's a moment where she thinks, and then she honestly answers, I don't know.
Would your superiors be happy to have this information, or would they immediately usher you to remove the threat?
She thinks again for another moment. I don't know.
Would you like to have an
Working.
informant inside the network?
Yes.
What does it mean to you to have an informant in the network?
Inside information would be incredibly valuable to ensuring citizens are safe. I
Dasha,
don't know if I could trust them, but
you understand that I've been sent here to clean up a mess, just like you have.
gee, I don't pretend to know how you guys work.
Fair, and I don't understand to recognize the legislation of which you operate under, but same means, the means to an end, if you will. We see that there is a problem with blank bodies. You see, we didn't wish this life upon us. We didn't beg or plead to become what we are. We simply are. And some of us go out of our ways to right those wrongs. We simply wish to exist. It's a problem for some. I can recognize your position. Are there other hunters in Gary right now?
I don't know.
How many would they send if you do not report in?
There's again a moment where she seems to think. It's a few to see if they could maybe pick up a trail at first, and if they can figure it out. 5, 10, depending on how much of a threat they think it is. The Bureau isn't aware of blank bodies, though.
Do you have the names of the blank bodies that you were after? Any of them outside of, you said the Luciano family?
She writes a couple, she like nods and writes a couple very quickly down.
Do you have a means of contacting your superior immediately?
Yes.
Would you call or text your superior for a phone call and use this means to say that you have an informant inside of the blank body network?
She waits a moment, thinks. Not right away, no.
Dasha, let me be clear with you. I don't want to see you die this evening or any other evening. I simply want to see this potentially flourish. It's an enemy of an enemy situation. It's not necessarily ideal, but it's an opportunity for us both to survive and to eradicate the threat on the front. Does that make sense?
She nods.
Would you like to have me as an informant inside of this network?
No, but I will.
Would you prefer any of the others that I work with?
I prefer none of them. She just interrupts. No, I prefer none of you.
I understand.
Hurtful.
But you still wish to have someone inside.
It is an advantage that I cannot turn away.
Certainly. So if I turn you away tonight, if you walk out of here with all of your faculties, with everything still intact, unharmed, would you bring forth your hunter cell? Or can I count on you similarly, the same way that you would count on me?
Now, keep in mind, she's under the effects of Dominate.
Sure.
So what she says is, whether Duke accepts it as entirely truth or not,
right?
It's up to him. But she simply, as you asked that, it would be more beneficial to keep them away for now. Learn as much as I can before making it a strike.
Very good. I only have a few more questions. It's more personal, something to work into, something that might lead you into a similar position as myself. What do you know about Iron Eagle Arms?
She was gonna point, but then there's like nobody. She'll roll her hand. Oh, you freed her hand, so she points, but then like doesn't really point to anything. My partner was following the lead.
So you have no information on Iron Eagle?
Basics. Moving in, rather popular in Chicago. Make a lot of money there. I think they're opening a shop here in Gary, as far as I understand, but that wasn't my focus.
I think that's worth noting, Dasha. If there is to investigate whatsoever, Iron Eagle is a sort that is important, both for the living world and the unliving world.
Okay.
Do you have a means of contact, a method for me to reach out to you?
Yes. And she will write down on the paper a number.
Maxwell, is there anything else that you believe is important for us to know?
Maybe ask her...
Sean's up there too.
If anybody else knows about her coming to this location besides her dead partner.
How did you acquire the information about this tire shop?
She takes a moment, nothing. I just staked out a couple people for a while, followed them here.
Anybody else know that?
Assuming that your partner was aware.
We're the first two to come to Gary.
When you informed your superiors that you were coming to Gary, what is it that you said to them?
Told the Federal Bureau. I told the Bureau is investigating more money laundering and fraud.
Did you tell them whom you were investigating for money laundering and fraud?
I gave them names of some shell companies, people I know that are attached to.
Write them down, please, Dasha.
She does.
I have a lot of experience.
As far as I know, she goes, as far as I know, they were attached to the Luciano family.
Can you write down the names of the Luciano family? Those that are important that I should be investigating myself.
She writes down just one name.
I look down to the paper to see what it says.
It is Mr. Luciano. What was his first name?
Bruce.
Bruce. So it says Bruce Luciano.
Also known as Averagely Fortunate Luciano.
Yeah, that's his nickname.
I looked at the names that she also wrote down regards to the blank bodies. What does it say?
Sure. You see the name of Scott written down, as she mentioned prior, and she would have written down. What's his name? Akemba. You see a name of Akemba written down, as well as Candy, but no last name attached to that, just Candy.
Akimba and Candy. Okay. Sean, I know that you're there as well. Any questions that you can think of that are important in this moment?
You just get like a knock that's from the other side of the door that means he's not interested.
Well, I think our time here is finished. I'm going to see to that my allies allow you to also step aside and walk out unscathed, any more than you already have been.
With a blank look on her face, she just nods.
We'll be keeping your stake and your firearm. You'll have to acquire another, especially since Iron Eagle is starting a branch here, and Gary shouldn't be hard.
And again, she nods without hesitation.
That's a lead that I think that you should exhaust for now, as it's something that has come across my radar at least more than once. Look into them, and you'll find something much greater than blank bodies.
She, again, nods.
I'll stand, or I'll move up to her and offer my hand to...
As you do, she reaches out and grabs it. You pick her up or help her up, and as you gesture to the door, she walks to the door, past Max, past Adelaide, as the door opens, or rather, as the door opens past Adelaide and past
Dasha.
Eric. She stops.
I'll be in contact.
She nods, and you hear the crunching of grass under her feet as she walks off out of sight.
Hey, you sure that's gonna work there, Duke?
It's a lead we have to exhaust. She thinks that I'm going to be an informant for her. It's the other way around. I'd much rather know when this cell is after us.
Yeah. I'm actually kind of glad we didn't have to pop her.
I don't think it's necessary all the time. It's bloody and it's a mess, and as good as I am at cleaning, I don't think it's entirely necessary all the time.
No, it ain't. Yeah. Feeling kind of bad about old Derek here. But what are you gonna do? Spilt milk.
Means to an end.
Speaking of spilt milk, I'm gonna see if I can squeeze any more juice out of his carcass, and then I'm gonna rip it up like a well-cooked chicken.
Was Sean about to say something?
Yeah,
no?
Sean would have come in and is like, Duke, I'm gonna have to look into like where to get, a stash anyway. And these lots sound like they're all into some fairly organized crime. Do you want me to take those names? See what
I
the
think
street
it's
says.
worthwhile, yes. You should copy what relevant information you have here. I'm going to reach out to a friend at a position in Chicago. Unfortunately, I can't be there with him, but I'm sure I wouldn't hesitate to assist.
Scott Freeman, Ikemba,
Candy.
and Candy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those all
As we
sound like
see-
street names. I'll be able to find them.
She hears Sean kind of go over them openly, claps the book shut, and says, "Yeah, I'll figure it out." And perhaps even making his way to the front door. And as the coterie makes its way down the ladder again, as the dance comes to an end, and we see them officially gather, before we even begin the next conversation, we have to close the episode here. We cut to black, and we return next week with the next episode. Goodbye, everybody.